The contract lay between them like a mirror polished to cruelty. Elara traced the words with careful fingers. No intimacy, no physical contact, no emotional involvement. Cassian Vale's gaze, cool and assessing, didn't waver as she read the clauses. The world outside his oceanfront mansion blurred into gray glass and thunder. His voice was velvet threaded with steel. "You're free to decline." But freedom had long since left her life. Debt and desperation had replaced it. She signed, her pen trembling. Only once. He nodded. Precise, distant. Yet his eyes lingered, as though memorizing the moment she surrendered. Lightning fractured the horizon, and for an instant his face betrayed something unspoken. Something that feared the touch he'd forbidden. The mansion stretched in silence, every corridor whispering wealth and isolation. Elara followed Lena, the assistant, through glass walkways suspended above gardens of black stone and water. Cassian's world was all precision. No warmth, no clutter, only order. Her studio awaited on the east wing, filled with priceless art stripped of feeling. "You'll restore one piece at a time. He doesn't like surprises," Lena said softly, eyes avoiding Elara's. Alone at last, Elara brushed dust from the first painting. A Renaissance portrait of a woman with eyes like secrets. Her reflection blurred in the varnish. Somewhere beyond, she heard footsteps stop outside her door. Silent, watching. Days blurred into quiet ritual. Brushes, solvents, silence. Yet Cassian appeared at the doorway each evening, never entering, never speaking. His reflection would catch in the glass an outline of restraint. One night, as Elara leaned close to remove a century of grime, she felt it. The weight of his gaze. "You shouldn't watch me like that," she whispered, not expecting an answer. "Then stop making it impossible not to." His voice replied, low and unexpected. The air between them tightened, charged with what neither dared name. She looked up, but he was already gone, leaving only the echo of confession. Muriel's voice crackled through the phone, grounding Elara for a fleeting moment in reality. "You've stepped into a world built on rules, my dear. Just don't let it erase you." Elara smiled faintly, watching rain glide down the glass wall. "It's just work," she lied. But the truth had already begun to shift. Cassian's silence had weight, his absence a presence. That night, she found a note slipped beneath her door. "The West Gallery is unlocked. There's something I want you to see." She hesitated, heart unsteady. Curiosity, she knew, could be as dangerous as desire. The West Gallery was a cathedral of shadows. Moonlight spilled across canvases like secrets uncovered. Cassian stood before one painting, a self-portrait by an unknown artist, its eyes raw with emotion. He turned as she entered. "You restored truth," he said softly, "but some truths shouldn't be touched." His voice broke the stillness, carrying both warning and wonder. She stepped closer, their reflections merging in the glass frame. For a heartbeat, neither obeyed the contract. Silence held them suspended between ruin and revelation. Then he stepped back, the distance reinstated. But his eyes had already broken every rule. The days unfolded with deceptive calm. Elara worked in silence, restoring what time had stolen. But Cassian's presence lingered like breath on glass. He visited more often now, never long enough to justify his curiosity, yet always long enough for her pulse to betray her. She pretended not to notice how his reflection joined hers in the varnish of old paintings, or how the air changed when he entered the room. One afternoon, he leaned against the doorway and said, "You work as if the world doesn't exist." She replied softly, "It doesn't in here." It was a truth and a warning, wrapped in longing neither dared to name. Elara found herself studying him when he wasn't looking. His control fascinated her. Every movement calculated, every silence intentional. Once she caught him standing before a painting she had finished restoring, his expression unreadable. You breathe life into dead things, he said quietly. Maybe I'm just bringing them home, she answered. For the first time, he smiled. Not the rehearsed kind for shareholders or cameras, but a real, startled curve of warmth. And in that brief crack of light, she saw the man behind the rules, the one terrified of breaking them. The mansion's isolation grew heavier with the rain. On the fifth evening of storms, power flickered, and shadows breathed across the walls. Ilara worked by candlelight, her brush trembling. Cassian appeared again, his voice quieter than the thunder. You shouldn't work in the dark, she smiled faintly. Maybe that's when truth shows itself. He stepped closer, and for a heartbeat, the candlelight caught on the fine lines near his eyes, the years of restraint etched into them. When the lights returned, he was standing too near, and neither moved. The hum of electricity returned, but something deeper had shorted within them. Cassian began leaving traces of his world where she'd find them. A coffee mug near her easel, a rare book about restoration on her desk. She understood what it meant. A silent offering from a man who didn't know how to give without control. One night, she caught him watching her from the balcony, expression unreadable. You shouldn't linger, she said softly through the open door. He answered, If I told you why, you'd run. Her heart ached at the honesty of it. Maybe I'd stay, she whispered. The words hung in the air, fragile as the art she was sworn to preserve. Late one night, Ilara found a painting in a locked crate, a portrait of a woman with eyes like hers. She realized Cassian had painted it himself. It wasn't listed in his collection. When she confronted him, he froze. She was the last person who touched me, he said, voice breaking. And she's the reason I don't allow anyone close. The silence that followed felt sacred, dangerous. She reached for the painting, her fingertips brushing the frame. He didn't stop her. For the first time, the distance between them felt like an illusion waiting to be shattered. The storm arrived like a reckoning. Winds clawed at the glass walls, the ocean thundering beneath the cliffs. The power failed, plunging the mansion into candlelight and silence. Ilara moved through the dim corridors, her heart echoing each step. When she reached the West Gallery, Cassian was already there, his expression carved in shadow. The generator's down, he said, voice low. You shouldn't be alone. She wanted to laugh. He'd been alone his entire life. The air between them hummed with the charge of unspoken truths. Neither should you, she replied softly. The words lingered, fragile and dangerous, as the lightning painted their faces with silver fire. Thunder rolled overhead as they lit more candles. Shadows swayed across marble floors, chasing each other like memories. Cassian moved closer, offering her a match to light another flame. You're shaking, he said. She met his gaze, steady now. You mistake curiosity for fear. His lips curved faintly, a flicker of amusement or pain, she couldn't tell which. The sound of the storm softened, but the pulse between them did not. You think you can see through me, he murmured. I already do, she answered, and for the first time he looked away. Later, they found shelter in the library, its scent of leather paper and rain-soaked air cocooning them. The storm raged beyond the glass, but here, time slowed. Cassian sat opposite her, candlelight trembling on his cheekbones. There was a woman, he said finally, voice rough with restraint. She said love could fix anything. She was wrong. Ilara's throat tightened. But she didn't interrupt. After she died, I wrote the rules to survive myself, he continued. The contract? She asked quietly. He nodded. Protection, not punishment. She leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. And what protects you from yourself? Silence filled the space after his words, heavy, reverent, unbroken. Then Ilara rose, walking toward a window streaked with rain. "You can't live behind glass forever," she whispered. Cassian followed, stopping a breath away. "And what happens when the glass shatters?" he asked. She turned, meeting his eyes. "Maybe what's left is real." Lightning burst behind them, illuminating their faces, his controlled, hers unguarded. In that raw flash of honesty, he reached out instinctively, his fingers grazing her wrist. The contact was brief, but the world shifted around it. Both of them stood still, bound by a touch that undid every rule had ever written. The storm passed before dawn, leaving silence and the scent of rain. They hadn't spoken since that moment by the window, each caught in the gravity of what couldn't be undone. Cassian stood by the dying fire, shoulders rigid, as if trying to rebuild the walls that had collapsed within him. "Forget last night," he said without looking at her. Ilara gathered her courage, her voice soft but steady. "You can pretend it didn't happen. I can't." He turned then, his eyes raw, defenses fractured. "You don't know what loving me costs? Then let me decide if I can afford it," she whispered. The day after the storm, everything in the mansion felt changed. The air carried echoes of what had nearly happened. Every glance, every silence charged with memory. Cassian buried himself in work, pretending indifference, but his composure frayed at the edges. Ilara avoided him for 2 days, until the guilt of pretending became unbearable. When their paths crossed again in the corridor, the distance was unbearable. He said her name like a confession, not a command. She stopped, but didn't turn. "If I face you," she whispered, "I'll forget every rule we made." His voice was barely audible. "Then forget them." In the studio, the painting awaited, unfinished, like everything between them. Ilara reached for a cloth, her hand trembling. Cassian entered silently, stopping beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Why this one?" he asked. "Because she looks like she's waiting for something," Ilara said. His eyes found hers, or someone. The air felt too thin, their words too honest. When she turned to leave, his hand caught her wrist, gentle but unyielding. "Tell me to stop," he said. Her breath broke. "I can't." The truth hung between them, fragile as the canvas stretched before them, painted in restraint and wanting. The accident happened in a breath. A jar of pigment slipped from Ilara's grasp, splattering crimson across the canvas. She gasped, instinctively stepping back, straight into Cassian. His hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. The touch was unthinking, human, real. Time fractured. His hand brushed her cheek, streaked with red, and he froze. The mark looked like war paint, vivid and intimate. "You're bleeding," he began, but she shook her head. "It's only color," she whispered. His thumb hesitated, then traced it away. In that motion, soft, reverent, the contract finally died. The room held its breath. The air thickened with the weight of everything unspoken. Cassian stepped back first, guilt flashing across his face like lightning. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he muttered. Ilara's voice was calm, heartbreakingly gentle. "Then why does it feel like it always would?" He looked at her as though seeing her for the first time, without walls, without fear. For a long moment he said nothing, just the sound of their breathing against the quiet hum of rain. Then, softly, almost broken, "Because I wanted it to." That night, neither of them slept. Ilara sat by the window, watching the ocean swallow the moonlight. The contract lay on the table beside her, torn down the middle. Cassian entered quietly, barefoot, no armor left. "You should go," he said, "before I undo the rest of your life." She looked up at him, calm now, resolute. "You already have," For the first time, he didn't argue. He only stepped closer, standing near enough that his shadow merged with hers on the floor. Outside, the storm had ended, but inside, something else had begun. Morning came cold and silent. The mansion, usually so ordered, now felt fragile, as though every wall could hear what had changed. Cassian avoided Ilara all day, the wound of his own desire turning to fear. He buried himself in meetings, but her face lived behind every spreadsheet. Ilara worked alone, her focus fractured by memory. When Lena entered the studio, her voice was gentle, but knowing. He doesn't do well with lines crossed. Ilara tried to smile. Neither do I. Lena hesitated, then added softly. The last woman who tried to love him didn't survive the damage. The words hung like a chill in the air. Cassian watched Ilara from his office, the security feed playing on mute. Every movement she made tore at him. Sebastian's voice broke through the silence. You're losing your edge, brother. Cassian's eyes narrowed. What do you want? The truth, Sebastian said, smiling faintly. I know about her. The conservator you've turned into a secret. Cassian's breath caught, the calm mask slipping. Stay away from her. Sebastian stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think you're protecting her, but you're just giving me leverage. The silence that followed was heavier than threat. It was prophecy. That evening, Ilara found the portrait she'd restored, moved to the main gallery, displayed beneath a new brass plaque reading, Property of Cassian Vale. Her breath caught. It was no longer hers to protect. It was his claim. When she confronted him, he didn't look away. I had to make it untraceable, he said. Sebastian knows too much. You mean he knows about us? Silence. The storm of guilt in his eyes told her everything. You can't fix this with control, she whispered. Then tell me how, he said. You can't, she answered. You can only lose. Lena found Cassian alone that night, staring out at the ocean from the balcony. He's coming after her, she said. Cassian didn't turn. He already has. His voice was low, dangerous. If Sebastian hurts her, I'll end him. And if you hurt her first? Lena asked quietly. He closed his eyes, guilt tightening his jaw. Then I've become everything I swore I'd never be. Inside, Ilara packed her things, unaware that love had become a battlefield around her. Every rule he'd written was collapsing, and all she could think of was the sound of his voice saying her name in the dark. Ilara's cab waited at the gate. She looked back once, at the mansion, at the world that had undone her. The front door opened, and Cassian appeared on the steps, rain beginning to fall again. Don't go, he said. She shook her head, tears glimmering in the headlights. You made a contract, Cassian, not a life. He stepped closer, voice breaking. I can't protect you if you leave. You can't protect me if I stay. The distance between them widened, final and quiet. She turned away. His eyes followed her until the taillights disappeared into the night, carrying everything he'd ever tried to control. Days passed without word from Cassian. Ilara returned to the city, her world shrinking to the soft hum of her small studio apartment. She tried to lose herself in work, but every brushstroke carried the echo of his voice. Then came the letter. No return address, only her name in neat, deliberate handwriting. Inside was a single photograph, the woman from Cassian's hidden painting, standing beside Sebastian. On the back, one sentence read, "She died because of him." Ilara's hands trembled. Suddenly, every silence, every rule, every look between the brothers reassembled into something darker. She went back to the mansion that night, rain following her like fate. Lena met her at the door, worry etched across her face. You shouldn't be here, she warned. Sebastian's inside. Alara stepped forward. So is the truth. The house felt colder now, emptier, haunted by the echo of what it had witnessed. From the open study, voices spilled out, Cassian's, low and furious, Sebastian's smooth and venomous. You killed her, Cassian said. You signed the papers that trapped her, and you wrote a contract to erase her, Sebastian shot back. The storm outside roared in agreement, as if the past itself demanded to be seen. Sebastian's smile was cruel. You think I killed her? She signed your contract, Cassian. The same one you made her sign. Cassian's breath caught. Alara stepped into the room. You used it to control her, not protect her. His eyes found hers, stricken. I thought if I kept her close, she'd be safe. I was wrong. The words broke through years of silence, raw and trembling. And when she died, Alara whispered, You wrote those same rules for me. Cassian looked away, shame tightening his jaw, because I couldn't bear to lose another woman to me. The storm outside shuddered with thunder, echoing the truth. Sebastian left first, laughter echoing through the hall. You've always destroyed what you love, he said, vanishing into the storm. Cassian sank into the nearest chair, the strength draining from him. She died because of a merger I didn't stop, he said quietly. I signed a contract that cost her everything. Alara knelt before him, voice breaking. You've been living inside that guilt. He met her gaze, unguarded at last. I don't know how to stop. She took his hand, paint-stained fingers against his trembling ones. Then, let me start with you. The storm softened, as though forgiveness had altered the weather itself. By dawn, the storm had passed. Cassian walked with Alara through the mansion's silent halls, ghosts of paintings staring down at them. You were never meant to stay, he said softly. I needed you to fix what time had broken. She smiled faintly. Maybe I did. They paused before the first painting she'd restored. The woman with eyes like truth. In the morning light, the cracks in the varnish gleamed like veins of gold. She's not a reminder anymore, Alara whispered. The city buzzed with quiet elegance that evening. The debut of Alara's restored masterpiece, drawing collectors, critics, and ghosts of memory. She stood beneath the vaulted glass of the Orium Gallery, her reflection caught in the painting that had once defined Cassian's cage. Reporters murmured her name, but she barely heard them. The air shimmered with champagne and murmured praise, yet her pulse echoed with absence. She thought of the ocean, of rain against glass, of the man who built walls to survive himself. When she turned toward the entrance, the crowd parted on instinct. Cassian Vale stood there. No mask, no distance. Just eyes that had already broken every rule. He didn't belong in that room of curated smiles and polite applause. Yet when Cassian's eyes found hers, the world shrank to the space between two heartbeats. You shouldn't have come, she said when he reached her. His voice was quiet, stripped of its usual command. I had to see what freedom looks like, her breath caught, not from surprise, but from the truth of it. Around them, flashbulbs sparked like fragments of storms past. The contract's over, she whispered. It ended the moment you walked away. He stepped closer, his tone almost a prayer. Then let me sign something new, with nothing but this. His gaze fell to her hand, trembling slightly against her side. He reached for her hand, hesitant but certain. The moment his fingers brushed hers, the noise dissolved, replaced by silence vast and holy. Her heart stuttered. His thumb traced the line of her palm like a confession written in skin. You're not afraid? She whispered. His answer came soft, steady. I've been afraid my entire life, but not of this. The gallery lights shimmered like captured stars, reflecting in their eyes. For the first time, Cassian Vale looked at her without distance, without guilt. In that gaze, she saw the man beyond the rules, the one who had always been reaching for her, even in silence. Outside the gallery, night had fallen, the city alive in soft rain and blurred headlights. They stood beneath the awning, her hand still in his. "What now?" she asked. Cassian's smile was faint, almost boyish. "Now I learn how to live without rules." She laughed softly, a sound he hadn't realized he'd been starving for. The rain caught in her hair, glinting like tiny pieces of glass. "You hate it," she teased. "Maybe," he said, voice low, "but only if it means losing this." He leaned closer, no longer asking permission. Their first kiss was nothing like defiance. It was peace, long delayed. The painting hung behind them, untouched by the storm of their story. Inside it, the woman's eyes no longer looked haunted. They gleamed with the reflection of two souls who'd rewritten what love meant. Cassian turned to her as dawn approached, his voice low, unguarded. "I spent years building walls, thinking they kept me safe, but all they did was keep me empty." Ilara smiled, brushing her thumb across his cheek. "Then let's build something else." The city stirred awake around them, rainlight turning gold, footsteps echoing like the beginning of a song. The contract was over. What remained was choice, and they chose each other.